rivalry between Dricus Du Plessis and Khamzat Chimaev is heating up. After Du Plessis' impressive victory over Sean Strickland to defend his middleweight title, Chimaev seems to be positioning himself as the next contender for the belt. Just recently, Chimaev took to X, posting a photo of himself with the caption, "Good morning, Dricus," taunting Du Plessis. It didn't take long for Du Plessis to fire back, responding with a message that added even more fuel to the fire.
Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that? What's that, brother?
Both fighters are clearly ready to square off, and fans are eagerly awaiting what could be an intense showdown for the middleweight title. The tension between them is only building, and this rivalry is definitely one to keep an eye on. Ilia Topuria made an unforgettable mark on the UFC by claiming the featherweight championship with a stunning knockout victory over Alexander Volkanovski. This win solidified his place in the history books of mixed martial arts, as he rose to the top in one of the most competitive and challenging divisions. Volkanovski, a dominant force in the division, found himself on the receiving end of Topuria's powerful striking, which secured Ilia the coveted title. To commemorate this significant achievement, Ilia shared a heartfelt moment with his fans and loved ones. The newly crowned champion posted a touching video in which he was seen singing "Happy Birthday" alongside his family, celebrating not only his title victory, but also marking the anniversary of such a monumental occasion. It was a perfect mix of personal and professional joy, as Ilia expressed his gratitude for the support he has received throughout his journey. The video captured a side of the champion that many may not have seen before, showing his humble nature and the importance of family in his success. This victory is a huge moment in Ilia Topuria's career, and it's clear that he has a bright future ahead. Fans can expect even more from this dynamic fighter as he continues to establish himself as one of the best in the UFC.
Cumpleaños feliz, te deseamos todos. Cumpleaños feliz. Primer año de cumple. Un año ya tiene este bichito.
Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Caio Borralho recently shared his thoughts on how Dricus Du Plessis would fare against both Khamzat Chimaev and Alex Pereira, and his opinions definitely stand out. He believes that either Dricus or Khamzat could win in a potential matchup between them, but when it comes to facing Alex Pereira, Caio has a much stronger stance. He firmly believes that Alex would kill Dricus in a fight. Caio went on to explain that while Dricus doesn't have the most polished or beautiful style, he still manages to make it work in his own way. Dricus has incredibly heavy hands and a tough chin, which gives him the ability to take shots and dish them out with power. Caio's view is that one of Dricus's most impressive qualities is his ability to maintain a steady pace, even when he is exhausted. He's always very disciplined with his strategy, never abandoning his plan, and he ensures that every punch he throws has a purpose. According to Caio, whenever he doubts Dricus surprises him and finds a way to win. But Caio also believes that how well Dricus understands Khamzat Chimaev's game could play a big role in the fight, and even though he thinks Khamzat would ultimately win, he admits that seeing Dricus win wouldn't be shocking. However, when it comes to a fight against Alex Pereira, Caio's opinion is much more definitive. He stated that Poatan, which is Pereira's nickname, would completely dominate Dricus. He emphasized Pereira's expertise in distance control and reach, explaining that these are crucial elements that make Pereira such a dangerous fighter. In contrast, Dricus has a tendency to make mistakes in his fights, and against a fighter like Pereira, those mistakes would be fatal. As Caio puts it, you make a mistake and you are dead. He believes that any small error made by Dricus would likely result in a knockout by Pereira. According to Caio, he truly thinks Dricus would be knocked out in a fight with Alex Pereira, given how dangerous Pereira is when it comes to punishing mistakes. So, while Caio recognizes the strengths of Dricus Du Plessis, particularly his resilience and ability to stay disciplined even when tired, he remains adamant that against a fighter of Pereira's caliber, Dricus's errors would ultimately cost him the fight. Francis Ngannou recently accused Dana White and the UFC of attempting to trap him. He shared that he would still love to fight Jon Jones, but at this point, he doesn't see it becoming a reality. Ngannou believes that during the UFC's efforts to re-sign him, they were using the potential Jon Jones fight as bait to lure him back in. In a recent interview with Sportsbook Review, Ngannou said, "If you can get past Dana White, it could happen, but that's a massive obstacle. But personally, I don't care. I'm doing well, I'm doing my stuff at my pace, I don't care. That won't change my sleep. For me, finishing my career without fighting Jon Jones would be okay. I've tried to fight Jon Jones for 4 years. Since I fought Jairzinho Rozenstruik back in 2020, I've been trying to fight Jon Jones. And then they were holding it out like a trap until the moment I was about to leave, and then they said, okay, here's the Jon Jones fight, but it was bait. I felt they were very tricky. Yes, Jon Jones would be a great fight, a fantastic fight. I've always hoped for that fight, but my hope and my expectation for that fight has faded over time. I have a lot of fights to get measurements of his light heavyweight career, and I have way less to look at him as a heavyweight. I think he's by far the best light heavyweight. His cage time as a light heavyweight was over a decade. At heavyweight, he has 2 fights. He has barely done 3 rounds. Ngannou's words have sent shockwaves through the combat sports world, as he is known for being one of the hardest hitting fighters in the UFC. His decision to leave the UFC was a significant move, as he had previously been the reigning heavyweight champion. Many had anticipated a showdown between Ngannou and Jones, 2 of the most dominant fighters in mixed martial arts, but it now seems unlikely that it will ever happen under the UFC banner. Ngannou's comments highlight the growing tension between him and the UFC, especially concerning how negotiations were handled. The UFC's decision to use the potential Jon Jones fight as leverage appears to have backfired, as Ngannou's disillusionment with the situation has only grown. He has made it clear that he's no longer waiting on the UFC for that big fight. Instead, he's focused on carving his own path and building his legacy in a way that suits him. The fight between Ngannou and Jones would have been one of the most anticipated matchups in MMA history, with fans eager to see how these 2 titans would clash. However, Ngannou's disinterest in the fight now shows how much his priorities have shifted. He's been in the game long enough to know that he can't wait around forever, and he's choosing to do things on his own terms. His statement about having less interest in Jones as a heavyweight only adds to the idea that Ngannou is moving on from the UFC and its politics. Whether or not Ngannou and Jones will ever meet inside the octagon remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: Ngannou is taking control of his career and making choices that work for him. Fans will have to wait and see how his career unfolds from here, but his bold stance against the UFC has already made a lasting impact on the MMA community. Belal Muhammad has made it clear that he has no plans to face Islam Makhachev anytime soon. The current welterweight champion recently stated that he would rather move up to the middleweight division, giving Islam the opportunity to compete for the welterweight title and potentially achieve double champ status. This move has raised a lot of eyebrows in the MMA community, as it would allow Makhachev to pursue another title while Muhammad looks to take on a new challenge in a higher weight class. It's a bold decision from Belal, signaling his intent to shake things up in the UFC's stacked divisions. Here's what Belal had to say.
Now, what about if he says you gotta fight Islam?
I would never fight Islam, because that's different. For me and him,
I know it is, right?
We've trained together,
right.
And you know, when you're sweating with somebody and you're bleeding with somebody and you train with somebody like that, it's just a different relationship. Like, it wouldn't be about money for me or for him, I don't assume. So like, I would never want to do that, and like, they've helped me so much. So for me, I would rather go up to 185 and let him just take 170 if that's the case. And like, since I've already had to fight my way up to 170 and I've been top 10 guys, like, I'm 2 fights away from being able to challenge that 185 and saying, hey, I want to be double champ.
What do you walk around at weight-wise?
Probably like 190.
So 185 is no problem for you?
Oh, no, 185 wouldn't be no problem. And I train with bigger guys.
Yeah.
So I've felt their strength. And a lot of, like, I think 185 is probably the easiest weight class besides Khamzat. Like, when you look at that main event this weekend,
an animal, yeah.
You're like, bro, Strickland and Du Plessis suck.